Okay, thank you. So thank you all for being here in the same industry, different regions, Fintech across markets panel. It's an honor to be with you. Thank you, South Summit, for organizing this event, for inviting us to be on stage in this panel. I am Begoña Ortiz. I am principal at Cometa. Cometa is a venture capital firm. We invest in fintech, B2B, software as a service companies, and also artificial intelligence and machine learning companies across Spanish-speaking markets. So with this investment thesis, we have invested in companies like Cabify, Cabify, the Spanish mobility company, Bitso, the largest cryptocurrency exchange in Latin America, Quesky, the largest microlender and buy now pay later in Mexico, and many other companies. Our portfolio is public if you have curiosity. Today is an honor to be with you in this panel talking about how fintech is reshaping financial landscapes globally. I am sharing this panel with amazing people. Carlos Alonso Torras, he's partner at Fintech Collective. Fintech Collective is a global early-stage VC firm with deep experience in lending, banking, and everything around how money moves globally. So welcome, Carlos, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We have Marta Antunes. She is director at Guaira Barcelona. I think that Guaira doesn't need a lot of introduction in this event, but if you happen not to know what is Guaira, Guaira is a corporate venture capital and open innovation platform for Telefónica. They have invested in more than 1,000 startups across within many years. So many thanks for being here, Marta, and welcome.
Thank you, Begoña.
And then we have Roberto Rory for his friends. Roberto Alvarez, he is general manager at Jeeves. He is in charge of leading the operations of Jeeves in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Jeeves, for those who doesn't know, is a global platform providing financial tools for global SMEs or global finance teams. So happy to share this panel with you. First of all, I would like to ask each of you, how do you think that fintech innovations are impacting both emerging and mature markets? Carlos would like to start.
Yeah, of course. And thanks again for having me. It's a pleasure. So I think when we look at fintech at Fintech Collective, right, we invest across a couple of core markets: Europe, the US, Latin America, as well as other emerging markets. No? When you think about that, I think number one, the type of verticals that are, right, that where you see a lot of activity in one versus the other. Obviously, things like wealth asset management, capital markets, right? It's not the same level of depth in emerging markets that you have in developed markets, versus things like banking, lending, payments. But precisely because of that, there's other models where, like vertical SaaS, which I'm a big fan of in emerging markets, where I think that you can reach a level of penetration in emerging markets that is different to that of developed markets, because the need is fundamentally different, right? So I think, for example, and that's where you always have to consider the entry point, right, and the main pain point. Like, I think access to credit remains the main pain point in emerging markets, right? That impacts things like willingness to pay for SaaS. So when you think about something like vertical SaaS, very different, the type of monetization in developed versus emerging markets. But yeah, that would be a short answer from me.
Great, thank you, Carlos. Marta?
Hi, yeah, well, thanks for inviting me to this panel. So, well, at Guaira, in fact, we invest across regions. So we have different hubs, in Europe, in Spain, in the UK, and in Germany, and also in Brazil and in Latin America. So we do have this wide vision of the different trends across different markets. And particularly in fintech is one of the verticals where we have been investing a lot recently. So Telefónica and Movistar have as one of the new businesses, although like financial services. So we've been pretty active investing in fintech in the last years. And some of the things that we see that are a little bit different in these countries, one is very easy, like currency volatility. We see like in countries like in Latin America, like Argentina and so on, a lot of currency volatility. So we see there a lot of opportunities in companies, in fintechs, trying to play, no, in this area, no. So we, for example, recently invested in a company called Grabberfy that I can tell you a little bit more later about it. But basically, it allows people, for example, in Argentina, no, to earn their salaries in US dollars, remote workers and gig economy workers and so on. So this kind of technologies, no, are very needed, no, these kind of markets. And there are also another things apart from currency and volatility. We see, for example, no, as you were mentioning, no, the access, no, to credit, no, and the need, no, for more flexible solutions. So, for example, solutions as salary on demand. We see also a huge adoption, no, in countries in Latin America, for example, and another startup, for example, we invested, no, which is Payflow, that was in fact winner of South Summit a couple of years ago. Is having like a huge success in Spain, but also when they have expanded to Latin America, they see a huge adoption in there, no, because there's this need, no, of more like flexible ways, no, of accessing these financial products, right? And the third thing that I would highlight is the amount of different payment methods, and so I would say, like in Europe and emerging markets, no, it's everything is like a little bit more consolidated. Well, when you go to emerging markets, no, there's a very like variety of ways, no, that people are paying and so on. So there's also the need, no, for companies, no, to adapt, no, to this more fragmented market. So these are really the things that we're seeing.
Thank you, Marta.
So thank you, Begoña. Thank you, South Summit. As Begoña was saying, I'm the general manager for Gibbs. Just to let you know, Gibbs is a global corporate bank. So we have been born in LATAM, in Mexico, but we are operating across different regions. We are operating in LATAM, North America, Canada, and EMEA. So in this case, we are operating in undeveloped markets, or emerging markets, like is LATAM. What I think, or what I believe, is that we are just trying to build the same platform for the whole world, but there are some differences. In emerging markets like LATAM, something that is important is the financial inclusion. So with Gibbs, what we are doing is to try to be faster in the sense of be able to open a bank account with us. The other thing that is important is the access to credit. Something that we don't ask with Gibbs is the personal guarantees when you are asking for some credit to do like some working capital or something like this. So this is another difference between emerging markets versus developed markets. Other things that we look in emerging markets is about transparency. As you can know, something that is happening across the world, but mainly more in emerging markets, is around corruption. So the transparency, when we are speaking about a platform like Gibbs, that we are doing expense management, credit, payments, the transparency is super important. And on the other hand, in countries like Europe, like Spain, is more important about the customer experience. So we are more focused about the customer experience that we can give to our customers. We are more focused in terms of innovation, something that is not about only fintech, but the fintech brings innovation, and it makes the traditional banks to get better and better and better as well. So the innovation is something super good. And the other thing that we are looking to do in traditional markets or developed markets is give efficiency to the teams. So one of the main objectives from Gibbs is to save time from the financial teams, especially from the CFOs. So something that we are doing is to make the problems that they are facing, for example, closing the books, do it faster. So this is the main difference that we have between emerging markets and developed markets.
Great, thank you for sharing, Rory. I would like now to deep dive in some questions. We were talking about a lot of differences between these type of regions. I think that one of the most important differences are the differences in the regulatory environments. The European Union has a general framework, Mexico has a fintech law, Brazil has their own framework, Colombia has a sandbox, and regulatory topics vary a lot from region to region. Carlos, you have invested in a lot of these countries. I would like to have your opinion on how these regulatory environments help or is a challenge for these companies operating in fintech spaces.
Yeah, definitely. So I think without a doubt, the best regulator for fintech in the world that we see is Brazil. So I hope my answer to the last question was not misunderstood, right? It's not that, there's different things that can be created in emerging versus developed markets, but actually in Brazil, we're seeing conditions for fintech that we're not seeing anywhere else in the world.
Okay.
Like Brazil today has a real-time payment system that is only akin to that of India, with an open banking regulation that is basically akin to that of the UK. If you bring those things together, like the type of fintechs that can be born out of that are unique in the world. In one of the world's biggest economies with a population over 200 million, right? Which is fascinating. So yeah, I mean, as a lot of people say, one of the best fintechs in the world is the Brazilian central bank. I believe it's true. Peaks, right, the real-time payment rails, at a peer-to-peer level, fastest adoption in history. Again, inspired by UPI in India, from the RBI, but grew even faster. Again, open banking regulation, even if you look at the crypto level, the amount of things that are coming out of Brazil are extremely forward-looking, right? So definitely see that as a very good example. In terms of, let's see, in a few dimensions, right? In terms of the cost efficiency of the infrastructure that was built for fintechs to be able to be born on top of that, right? That's one thing. The use of sandboxes, you mentioned the example of Colombia, the SUSEP, one of the regulators in Brazil for InsurTech has led a very good example. And even that, I think collaboration with the private sector, quite frankly. Like I think, the legal counsel we use in Brazil typically for deals, Pinheiro Neto, like they are extremely close to a regulator. The amount of access that they have and the dialogue between the private and public sector, I think is formidable, or at least it has been, right, over the last years, and we definitely hope it continues. So we see that as an extremely encouraging example. As a counterexample, and I hope I don't bother you with this.
You will.
Sorry. Mexico is not moving quite as fast. Definitely the regulator, as you said, the fintech law, right, has created conditions for fintech, and we're seeing, I mean, we're invested in many companies in Mexico, and that's how the relationship with Cometa, which is a very strong one, comes. But look, I mean, let's take the example of neobanks, right? Like neobanks in Mexico right now, extremely hot, area, but the majority of them are either, buying junior banking licenses, so FIPOs as they're called, or actual bank licenses, right? That takes a lot of time and money. Arguably the new bank thesis would have taken longer to grow in a place like Mexico versus the conditions that happened in Brazil. So that's something to consider, right? And I think that the pace at which that evolves is something to take into account. And by the way, I use the example of Mexico, but if you talk about crypto in the US versus places like Singapore or Dubai, right? Like, the conditions for crypto, unfortunately, right? We have 2 DeFi funds in the US have been significantly slower than what we'd have expected, right? Conversely, I think France, from a Gen AI perspective, has done incredibly. Yeah. We've now closed our second investment in France in the last half a year, and I think that the conditions there are very formidable.
Amazing. Thank you, Carlos. I want to put in the parking lot these emerging technologies that you are talking about, like blockchain, that it's not that emerging anymore, AI, but we will get back to that later. Please feel free to jump in if you want to. Rory, Carlos was talking about the difficulties within many regulatory environments in the world, and you try to give one product all over the world, and I guess that you want to ensure a customer experience through all of these countries. What are the challenges for this customer experience, even if you have different levels of financial inclusion with SMEs and underserved SMEs, and you want to give a same customer experience throughout the world?
Yeah, so there are many different challenges, but the first thing that I want to say is, like, if we look today at traditional banks, there is no any bank at all that they can be a global corporate bank. If we look at any, I don't want to say any name, but when you have like a company or even a personal account here in Spain, I was living in Mexico for more than 9 years. I was customer of one of traditional banking in Mexico. Then when I decided to move back to Spain, the banks, they are not connected. So even if they say that they are global, they are not global. They have the same name, the same brand, but they are different in terms of connections, infrastructure, people that you are speaking with. So this is what we are trying to fix. And to make that in one country is super difficult. To make it all around the world is even much more difficult, exponential. So the first challenge that we face, of course, is the technology and infrastructure that we have to build across the many different countries. But it's not only about that, because we are speaking about financial institutions. We have different challenges with rates. So one of the verticals that we have in the company is that we have multi-currency. So we have to deal with different rates in terms of US dollars, Canadian dollars, GDP, pounds, euros. So that's another thing. Also, something that is a challenge is about the compliance. So the compliance is working different in every single sector, and even the license. How we are doing to build a company in less than 3 years all around the world with many different partnerships, because otherwise it will be impossible. I mean, in the future, we are trying to do it by ourselves, but today it's really difficult to operate in more than 30 countries in less than 3 years. And finally, something that is a huge challenge is the fraud, because in every single country or in every single region, the fraud is different, and the people that they are trying to make fraud, they create, and they are super innovator. So they try to innovate in a different ways to do it. But to build a global corporate bank in many different countries also gives us a lot of opportunities. One of the biggest opportunities is the economies of scale. Like, for example, if we close one customer that is operating in Spain, but this customer is going to Mexico or to any other country, the cost of acquisition for one customer is reduced by a lot of times because it's not just one customer. It's one customer that is operating in multiple countries and with different multiple services. And we have many other opportunities in the company at the same time of building this kind of global corporate bank. Like, we help companies to grow. So, for example, this is a challenge that I used to have. I built a company in Mexico that then I expand to 7 different countries in LATAM. And in every single country, I had to open a new bank account. It takes me like 1 month to open a new bank account. With us, just opening one bank account, you have access to many different countries. So there are many opportunities as well. It's not only about challenge, it's about the opportunities that you face.
Absolutely. Many thanks, Rory. Marta, when we were discussing, preparing this panel, we were talking that there are 2 groups of underserved kind of markets, the SMEs, as Rory was mentioning, but also there is still a huge opportunity with helping people to be more served by financial institutions, like general people. For example, in Mexico, we have 50% of underbanked population. I guess within Telefónica's portfolio, you have amazing examples of companies that are helping this underbanked or underserved population. Mm-hmm. Do you have any examples that you could share with us?
Exactly. So, I mean, we believe that, I mean, although, no, I mean,
Sorry.
Neobanks, no, have been there, I mean, for some years already. No, there's still, no, particularly in emerging markets, no, big opportunity, no, because still in B2C, no, there's a lot of workers, no, that are underserved, no, underbanked, no, and maybe have a bank account, but they have no access, no, to financial products or be able to have like credit, invest in stocks. Currency exchange and on all these other things in a easy way, no? So yes, of course we have invested, no, in these kind of companies. And one example is Grabber5, for example, no, the company I was mentioning, no. For example, is the target of this company is remote workers. That more and more, no, we've seen like in the future of work, no, a lot of like after COVID, no, freelancers, remote workers, people that work for companies in the US or in Europe, etc., but that are based in Latin America or in India or in other countries, and that what they want is to be able to have this stability, right, and be able to earn their salaries, in this case, no, in US dollars. So this company, what it allows is that they can have a bank account in the US without without having any kind of visa or having to go there, etc. So you can access this type of bank account, from wherever you are in the world, and you're able to receive your salary in US dollar and also to expand it, and be able to have a credit card in US dollars. So this would be an example of a recent investment that we've done. But apart, of course, of B2C, which is a strong focus for us, we see more and more also opportunities for SMEs and even for corporates, because I think this is one of the trends that we're seeing, that Fintech, we've seen a lot of innovation in consumer, but still big corporates, the financial services area and the CFOs, etc., are still having a lot of doing a lot of manual tasks. So we see also now with AI, big opportunity, to automatize a lot of the processes, that are in big corporates, and this is also a sector, what we're that we're tackling. And for instance, another example of a company that we have recently invested is Wealth. So Wealth, they are building, automatizing billing processes for subscription-based businesses. So, and you would be impressed how still like a big company as Telefónica, with millions of customers, the process of billing, all these like subscriptions, monthly subscriptions, is still very not manual, but still not automatized, and not up to date, with the latest technologies, and more, we need the ways to be more flexible, because subscriptions vary, you have more promos, different types of customers, coupons, different type of paying methods, So companies like Wealth, for example, help not only SMEs but also corporates automatize all these billing processes, And I think, as I was saying, that there's still a big opportunity in there.
Thank you for sharing, Marta. We have only 5 more minutes, so I would like to go back to our parking lot, Carlos. Please tell us, how do you think these rising technologies like blockchain, DeFi, artificial intelligence are helping or not the financial ecosystem in both emerging and developed markets? And Rory, if you have any examples that how are you implementing these type of technologies in Jeeps, would amazing to hear.
Should I start?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's without a doubt. No, I mean, we've been investing in DeFi since 2017, so we've very much seen the evolution there. I think if you look at traditional finance today and the increased usage of DeFi and things like asset management, lending, trading, it's something that we think is increasing, right? As I said, from a regulatory perspective, in some parts, it's been not as fast as we would have liked or expected. But without a doubt, we think it's very much going to become increasingly complementary to the traditional financial system, right? We don't necessarily see a parallel, completely decentralized financial system, right? And I think that when you see recent things like MICA regulation in Europe, or even JP Morgan, right, at a private level launching Onyx, these are examples of that. And I think that, for DeFi, look, I think the potential in emerging markets is even greater, right? If you look at the usage of DeFi, for example, for micropayments, for cross-border transactions, definitely, especially via stablecoins, right, and peer-to-peer payments or lending, it's incredible. Like the 3rd biggest holdings of USDT at a global level, I believe, are in Argentina. The 2nd highest Bitcoin trading volumes in the world are in Nigeria.
Yeah. Well.
These are ways of circumventing chronic problems, right? Inefficiencies, corruption, currency fluctuations, a lot of things that have come up in this conversation, right? So it's no surprise, right? Like, granted, limited access to internet, right? Lack of digital literacy, some of these, sometimes even regulation, some of these things are, they're potential blockers, right, to more widespread development of DeFi in emerging markets. But despite that, things are definitely moving along, and it makes sense. In the case of AI, very quickly, look, I think Gen AI is definitely an empowerer, right? We, as a fintech-specific fund, we don't invest exclusively in AI companies,
Okay.
but throughout all the verticals that we invest, we have to ask ourselves, how can AI disrupt this?
Yep.
And how can the next generation of these type of companies leverage Gen AI to do so, right? Obviously, for example, both Cometa and us were in Symmetric, right? Symmetric,
Yes.
they're basically building financial reconciliation as a way to build a larger toolbox for financial operations, right? If you look at that, the data mode that this company has, because of the trillions of transactions that they've processed, the potential to leverage Gen AI to create a competitive mode is massive. It's not the same in other business models, right? So you have to take it one at a time.
Amazing. Thank you, Carlos. Rory, any examples?
So I completely agree with Carlos. Just to give a clear example at Jeeves, we have been born to be a global corporate card. But basically what we saw in the market is that the market was changing. Then we did the expense management tool. After the expense management tool, we create the multi-currency layer. And now the main revenue stream that is coming to a company is the payments.
Okay.
So we are speaking about doing cross-border transactions, receiving payments from different vendors, and I think this is the main vertical today in the company, even though that it was the last one that we launched about 6 months ago.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing.
And if I may
yes,
add,
sure, please.
regarding adoption of blockchain, crypto, and so on, I think there's still a lot to do, but even like a company, for example, like Telefonica is adopting this kind of technologies. And we, for example, last year also invested in Bit2Me, which is a crypto exchanger here in Spain. And we are integrating this in our e-commerce, right? So more and more, you'll be able also to use your wallet to buy and to pay for your daily services, like your telephone line or anything that you need. So I think, little by little, also like big corporates are adopting this kind of technologies, and we see like a interesting future for that.
Thank you. Last question to close this panel. Let's discuss in 15 seconds each one. What's the role of VC investing in fintech companies in emerging and developed markets? The importance. Do you want to start, Carlos?
Sure.
Or anyone?
Please.
Me as a VC, I don't know, even though that I'm angel investor, I think that the money that the VCs invest in different fintechs is super important. Once again, not only to create and to improve the ecosystem of fintech, but also to improve and to bring a better experience in the traditional banks. So I think it was a lot of money spent during the last 5 years. Right now, it's not like the hype in the market, but even though I think that it's going to be an industry that is going to speak, everyone is going to speak a lot in the right now and in the next years.
Yep. Thank you, Rory.
Talking about like CVC perspective,
yes, absolutely.
Also I think is definitely a sector where there have been a lot of interest and still we believe there's a lot of potential, and particularly I think the role of CVCs is very clear where you can not only provide financial support to the companies, but also ways in that they can scale and grow together with big groups like Telefonica or our customers. So for us, definitely, it's a sector where we want to continue investing. So yeah, if any of you have a fintech company, happy to talk.
So very quick, I think there's many similarities. The main difference is evangelizing. I think in emerging markets, if you're a VC, right, you probably have to convince some customers that the model makes sense. You probably have to try to talk to the regulator and convince the regulator to move certain things. If a company is raising debt, it's going to be harder than raising debt in like Europe or the US for sure. You have to get more creative. If you have to talk to growth investors, you're going to, nowadays they don't have as much of EM-specific thesis. You have to convince them of why this makes sense, why this market is not just completely dangerous, why they can actually make money and have impact. All these things, right? Like if you want to help them with hiring, like there's less of a talent pool, so you have to be more specific, more intentional. So, it's a lot of similar things. It's just harder because there's less resources available.
So I think we are on time. Thank you, Carlos, Marta, Rory, for all your insightful contributions. Thank you all for being here, and enjoy the rest of South Summit. you.